Okay, so one of those techniques that you're going to learn in jiu-jitsu, probably at a very early stage, hopefully before you even reach blue belt, is going to be the standing takedown from the back. Okay, so it's going to be, you get to clinch, and what you're going to do is you're going to do a setup step, and then you're going to block the heel, and then you're going to sit your butt away from your opponent, and as you do, you're going to drag them down to the mat. Okay, so setup step, block the heel, sit them away, and then you're going to look to come to the mat. Okay, and probably a modified mount, hopefully looking for the seatbelt. Okay, so that's a technique that you learn really early on, and I think in terms of self-defense, it's probably a good technique to teach somebody who's new, but I think as your opponents progress through the ranks, the effectiveness of that technique diminishes, okay? And also the risk of hurting your opponent's knee is very high, okay? So from an instructor perspective, I'm always worried that my students do it just a little bit wrong, so that when they sit, they end up sitting into their opponent's knee laterally, okay? Putting that lateral pressure, which is why they eliminated, the scissor takedown in judo. So that lateral knee pressure with falling body weight is very dangerous, right? So the reason why it's less effective, though, besides the risk of injury, is because all Andy really has to do, or all I really have to do, is just step back with my leg, okay? So if Andy has that technique on me, if you take my bag. Okay, let's go, Andy. And I end up in a really dominant position. Okay, so let's do it again over here where we can see Andy. So all I have to do to beat this technique is to pull my leg out. When he goes, go. And I end up on top, okay? I end up controlling this position, even if I go down. And there's a good chance that I won't go down, all right? It's a learned behavior, that movement, but it doesn't take you long to figure that out, all right? So we have to come up with more effective, better ways to take people's backs or advance the position from there, all right? Now, it's really, it's possible for me to throw the seatbelt and throw the hook, all right? And then I end up on my opponent's back. The reason I don't like this very much is because once I'm on a standing opponent's back, if I don't have the second hook, I have no leverage to get it in. And he can put all the effort into keeping that second hook off, okay? That's a sportive perspective. From a street perspective, it's very obvious why that's a bad idea, okay? So jumping onto his back with a seatbelt early and trying to throw the first hook and then trying later to fight that second hook in, not practical, all right? What I would probably think would be better than that would be the Renzo Gracie takedown, okay? The one that the Renzo Gracie school really emphasizes, and that's where you come around here, throw that leg on the inside, and then you're going to pull him to that one side. And as he goes down, you're going to make a seatbelt grip here, and then you have your bottom hook. You can stretch. You can use your hips to lever open for that space on that second hook, okay? So that would be one of the techniques that I would teach over the basic, like old school Gracie, sit back, and just flop them on the ground kind of technique, okay? So again, that would be here. So you can go and do more research on all of this, okay? So I would be here on the back. I would throw that first hook in, and then I would take him to that corner there, okay? And then throw the seatbelt, okay? So we did a bunch of work with Mike Perez on that technique when he came out to our school some time ago, and it's very effective. It works really well off the cage as well. We saw it in MMA not that long ago, where I think it was something like you're on the cage like this, and he threw the first hook, and then he used his right leg to push off the wall. Okay, so it was like this, threw the first hook, and then the second leg, and he ended up taking the back. Okay, so definitely has practical application, very effective technique. Okay, another technique that I would teach, probably over the traditional Gracie sit back technique, would be a standard mat return. Okay, and so I really like the standard mat return from wrestling because you get a lot of ability to do it even to somebody a bit bigger than yourself because you're using your hips. Okay, so it'll be here like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to step in front. Okay, like I want to come to the T position. Okay, so I start from behind. I'm going to do a setup step in front, and then I'm going to pop my hips into my opponent as I lift. Okay, so it's a hip swing here. Hips, okay? I'm gonna lift my opponent, and then I'm gonna aim his hands down. I want his hands to hit the mat first, almost like I'm trying to put his face flat, square into the mat. I want his legs to kind of come up above his head. Okay, that's how I know I've done it really well, is when he kind of has to emergency base his hands out, okay? So it's gonna look like this. Move back to this, Randy. Here. Okay, so from there, I can't stop at that position, okay, because then I'll just end up on a turtle. I want to advance this position to his back, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately take my shoulder, the side that I drop him, I'm going to take that shoulder, put it into his armpit, and I'm going to circle with my legs away from him, okay? What I want to do is put him on his side before I make my seat upright. Like this. There, okay? So let's do it from another angle. Let's do it from facing this right here. Okay. I want them to see, okay? So again, and then he falls to his side. This is where I make my seat upright. Okay, and then your chair seat. Okay, then I have the leverage to peel and get that second hook. Okay? Then the third one that I really like.
Angle that down almost, but then it misses our head.
Yeah, it's okay. That'll do it, eh? Okay, and then the third one that I really like is the one from, I saw it first from the Atto school, Galval teaches it. And that's where, what he does is he comes through, he's gonna end up on a leg drag, okay? So it's gonna be this outside foot is gonna go right across both legs. I want my knee to kind of, my outside knee to poke through his knees, okay? So I'm going in step behind his first knee, and my hip is gonna go behind his second knee, okay? It's gonna go like this, here. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit to my butt and pull him across my body as I look to my left. And it's gonna put me in this position here, this leg drag, okay? Leg drag with a seatbelt option, right? Which I really like, okay? So there's three big techniques that you can use instead of this technique here, okay? Wrong leg. No, this one, okay? So three techniques you can use instead of that technique, which I think is actually dangerous because it high risk of doing it incorrectly, okay? So it's something I really try to emphasize a lot with my students, and even still, I see a lot of people doing it incorrectly, even into the blue belts, you know, after many times of trying to correct it, you know. So I think it's still worthwhile teaching because I do think it has real life application. I just think that for a sportive and also for a practical perspective, using these other three techniques will get you a bit further from that back, okay? Any other ideas? Okay, one other one that you might see used is the Marcelo Garcia one, and that's where he's famous for doing it to like a giant, okay? So he's going seatbelt on the back, and what he's gonna do is put both of his feet into the back of his opponent's knees, okay? And this is gonna work when your opponent is at least upright. If he's forwards like this, okay, if he ever goes to his knees here like this, and in fact, we'll address that in a second. Let's just come back for a second. Okay, if he's forwards, it's not gonna work, but if he's at least here, you're still gonna make this one work. The thing I don't like about this, personally, is that if your opponent is smart, you're gonna have a really hard time getting those second hooks. You might find your seatbelt, which is ideal, but you're gonna really fight with those hooks because when you end up falling, he's gonna be sitting between your legs, okay? So it's like this right here, like this. So, and then you're gonna lose it exactly, okay? So that's the one thing that I don't particularly like about that. I think if you're fighting somebody like lower skill, or if your timing is good, you'll still be able to pull it off. So I'm not saying it's bad, I just don't think that it falls into the three top strategies that I would use from that standing back position, okay? Okay, so the rear naked choke sitting down technique, I don't actually advocate that technique. And the reason personally is because I'm a lot shorter than pretty much everybody, even Andy. Like, and Andy's maybe 145 pounds and like 5'5". He's still taller than me and still weighs a lot more than I do, okay? Because I'm a rooster weight, and I walk around at rooster weight. So if you're fighting somebody like that, to get your arm around somebody's neck, you have to lift your toes, okay? If I have to lift my toes to put my arm around someone's neck, then what that means is that his center of gravity is already lower than mine, okay? And then it's very easy for him just to drop forward and he's gonna end up throwing you on your ass, okay? It's not even a learned behavior. I've seen people do this without any training, okay? So if you are gonna do it, it really only works if you're I would say if you're taller than your opponent, then it's easier to drag him back, okay? You okay?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm all right. And the other one is if you're gonna do it, you want to try and kick, maybe try and kick out that back leg. You need to have him off balanced, okay? But even still, once I do that, you know, there's still a risk here that he ends up running around that corner there, and now he's got my arm. See? So, and that's actually like a technique that you learn in self-defense, right? When somebody's got the rear naked choke on you, right? Let's switch sides. When someone's got the rear naked choke and you're off balance, right, backward, the technique that you should be using is stepping to the outside like so, and then doing a pivot 180 degrees, and then bowing forward. Let's move this way. Okay? Stepping, pivoting, and then bowing here. That's the technique you ought to be using, right? And so like if you end up trying to take somebody down and they squirm around, then, you know, I think you lose the control, right? And we're looking for the position before we look for the submission. We're looking for control, right? So I think while we're on the subject of defending rear naked chokes, okay, so if somebody comes up to you behind you, throws their arm, okay, if they're up on their tippy toes, super easy, okay? Almost no skill required, all right? If they're taking you backwards, all right, then you step and step, also easy, okay? And then a really simple one that doesn't even require any of that skill is your hands are free. When he has my neck, my hands are free, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look to make space between our bodies, and I'm gonna pass my arm to the other side of his hip. And then I'm gonna use that to square up with him. So look, now I end up with an underhook, okay? So from here I can use any clinch throw. I can come between the legs, okay? I can do the traditional Gracie stuff, right? Anything that relies on this position, or I can even go double unders, right? And then I can start to break my opponent down. Okay? So I would not suggest trying to throw the choke on somebody taller than you in a street fight, okay? Without first really disrupting their base. I would probably advocate much stronger to go around the waist. Okay, to come around the waist, and then, you know, depending on where their weight is, big mat return, or you can use the Renzo Gracie method, all right? Or you can use the Galvao method with the leg drag, okay? Let's just talk about one thing. If he's bent forward, okay, hands on the knees, okay, hands on the mat, okay? I'm not gonna be able to lift him, all right? I mean, it's possible, like I'm not gonna be able to pull him backwards is what I mean, okay? So I'm not gonna be able to do that. This one won't work, okay? The Renzo Gracie one might actually work quite well from here, okay? Because I'm taking him at a 45 over his shoulder, all right? You could very likely, you know, come to the front here. What I would suggest is he's already on a mat return. Take your right shoulder, put it behind his shoulder, circle away till you put his hips on the mat, and then work your seatbelt. Okay, so let's move back to here, Andy. So look, right shoulder into his shoulder, circle away till his hips are on the mat, seatbelt grip, okay? And then from here you can top leg, you can work your chair sit, you can use this to pry him, and then second hook, okay? So that was something I wanted to teach, or at least have a discussion about standing mat returns rather than trying to do that throw. So just real quick, let's talk about the defense to that. Okay, so if Andy here has my back, okay, so we'll just do it from the front. Okay, now Andy's gonna do a setup step with his right foot. It's gonna come next to my right foot. He's gonna block my heel with his left foot. Now what he's gonna do is start to sit his hips away, but just wait. When he sits his hips away, okay, it's gonna be my right leg that I'm gonna lift up, and I'm gonna step back. Okay, and as I do that, I'm gonna try and face Andy and spread my arms, okay? So he's gonna go there. Okay, let's try that again, but let's get more back into angle. So this is a technique that I learned from a seminar with Riley Bodycomb. All right, and he's really good. Okay, so anyways, he's gonna come out. He's gonna set up step, block the heel, and then he's gonna start to drop. As he does that, I'm gonna lift and face. Okay, lift and try to face him, and then I'm gonna end up on my hip. From here, I can just work my leg free. Okay, and I even start to work up into omoplatas, whatever. Monoplatas, arm bars. Okay, so that's kind of that. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.